Welcome to Study Kendra. Today we will talk about Class 10th Chapter 1, The Rise of Nationalism in Europe, Part 2. We will start with the Age of Revolutions, 1830 to 1848. In July 1830, Bourbon kings were overthrown by liberal revolutionaries who installed a constitutional monarchy with Louis Philippe at its head. The July Revolution sparked an uprising in Brussels which led to Belgium breaking away from the United Kingdom of the Netherlands. In 1821, Greeks struggled for independence. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. The Romantic imagination and national feeling. Culture played an important role in creating the idea of the nation. Art and poetry, stories, and music helped express and shape nationalist feelings. Romanticism was a cultural movement which sought to develop a particular form of nationalist sentiment. Language also played an important role in developing nationalist sentiments. The Russian language was imposed everywhere, and in 1831, an armed rebellion against Russian rule took place, which was ultimately crushed. As a result, many priests and bishops were put in jail or sent to Siberia by the Russian authorities as punishment for their refusal to preach in Russian. The use of Polish came to be seen as a symbol of the struggle against Russian dominance. Hunger, hardship and popular revolt. Europe faced economic hardships in the 1830s. The first half of the 19th century saw an enormous increase in population all over Europe. The rise of food prices or a year of bad harvest led to widespread pauperism in towns and countries. In 1848, food shortages and widespread unemployment brought the population of Paris out on the roads. On the 4th of June at 2 p.m. a large crowd of weavers emerged from their homes and marched in pairs up to the mansion of their contractor demanding higher wages. The Revolution of the Liberals. In 1848, a revolution led by the educated middle classes was underway. Men and women of the liberal middle class demanded the creation of a nation-state on parliamentary principles, a constitution, freedom of the press and freedom of association. A large number of political associations came together in Frankfurt to vote for an all-German National Assembly. On the 18th of May 1848, 831 elected representatives marched to take their places in the Frankfurt Parliament convened in the Church of St. Paul. The constitution drafted for the German nation was headed by a monarchy, subject to a parliament. The crown was offered to Frederic Wilhelm IV, King of Prussia, but he rejected it and joined other monarchs to oppose the elected assembly. The middle class dominated the parliament, and a large number of women participated in the liberal movement. Women formed their own political associations, founded newspapers, and took part in political meetings and demonstrations, but they were still denied suffrage rights during the election of the assembly. In the years after 1848, the autocratic monarchies of Central and Eastern Europe began to introduce the changes that had already taken place in Western Europe before 1815. Thus, serfdom and bonded labor were abolished both in the Habsburg dominions and in Russia. The making of Germany and Italy. Can the army be the architect of a nation? Nationalism in Europe moved away after 1848, and Germany and Italy came to be unified as nation-states. Prussia took over the leadership of the movement for national unification. The architect of this process was its chief minister, Otto von Bismarck, and it was carried out with the help of the Prussian army and bureaucracy. In January 1871, the Prussian king, William I, was proclaimed German emperor. An assembly was held to proclaim the new German Empire. The process of nation-building demonstrated the dominance of Prussian state power. The currency, banking, legal and judicial systems in Germany were modernized. Italy unified. Italy was divided into 7 states in the middle of the 19th century, and among all the 7 states, Sardinia-Piedmont was ruled by an Italian royal house. All the regions were dominated by different kings. In the 1830s, Giuseppe Mazzini formed a secret society called Young Italy. The movement was led by Chief Minister Cavour. In 1859, Sardinia-Piedmont defeated Austrian forces. In 1860, they marched into South Italy and the Kingdom of the Two Sicilies and succeeded in winning the support of the local peasants. In 1861, Victor Emmanuel II was proclaimed King of United Italy. The Strange Case of Britain. Great Britain was the model of the nation, and prior to the 18th century, there was no British nation. The nation became powerful as it steadily grew in wealth, importance, and power. The Act of Union, 1707, between England and Scotland resulted in the formation of the United Kingdom of Great Britain meant, in effect, that England was able to impose its influence on Scotland. In 1801, Ireland was forcibly incorporated into the United Kingdom. The symbols of the New Britain, the British flag, Union Jack, the national anthem, and the English language, were actively promoted. In 1815, representatives of the European powers, Britain, Russia, Prussia, and Austria met in Vienna to draw up a settlement for Europe. Visualizing the Nation. In the 18th and 19th centuries, artists represented a country as a person and nations as female figures. During the French Revolution, female figures portray ideas such as liberty, justice, and the republic. Liberty is represented as a red cap or the broken chain, and justice as a blindfolded woman carrying a pair of weighing scales. Similarly, Germania became the allegory of the German nation. In visual representations, Germania wears a crown of oak leaves, as the German oak stands for heroism. Nationalism and Imperialism. Nationalism was no longer retained after the last quarter of the 19th century. After 1871, the most tensioned area was called the Balkans, a region comprising modern-day Romania, Bulgaria, Albania, Greece, Macedonia, Croatia, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Slovenia, Serbia, and Montenegro. Ottoman Empire made the Balkans region explosive, and all through the 19th century, they strengthened themselves through modernization and internal reforms. Due to various conflicts, Balkan became an area of intense conflict. During this period, intense rivalry built among the European powers over trade and colonies as well as naval and military might, which led to a series of wars in the region and, finally, the First World War. In 1914, Europe was disastered because of nationalism, aligned with imperialism. Anti-imperial movements were developed, but they all struggled to form independent nation-states. European ideas of nationalism were nowhere replicated, for people everywhere developed their own specific variety of nationalism. But the idea that societies should be organized into nation-states came to be accepted as natural and universal. Conclusion. The rise of nationalism in Europe. In 19th century Europe, a feeling of nationalism radically transformed countries, leading to radical changes in political and social scenarios. Until the 19th century, before the rise of nationalism in Europe, there were no distinct nations. If you find this video helpful and informative, please share and hit the subscribe button.